Welcome to the Phenomenon Sessions with your host, Sean, and co-host, Brent, where we discuss strange experiences, the mind, and other phenomena. Join us as we venture into conversations about life and its mysteries. Let's begin the Phenomenon Sessions.
Hello, everyone. It's Wednesday evening, a little after 9 p.m. Eastern. My guest tonight is science writer Brian Dunning, who is the host and producer of the Skeptoid podcast, one of the longest running and consistently most popular independent science podcasts, having surpassed 100 million downloads in 2017. He is also the writer and producer of the documentary films Here Be the Dragons and The Principles of Curiosity, and science fiction. He has appeared on numerous radio shows and television documentaries, and also hosts the science video series, In Fact, with Brian Dunning. He is the author of 7 books, such as Conspiracies Declassified. Formerly a computer scientist, Brian now uses new media to promote science literacy and critical thinking. He is a member of the National Association of Science Writers and lives in Central Oregon. Hello, Brian. How are you, sir?
Hello, I am great, sir. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing good. It's a little rainy and warm over here in the east again.
No problems with it being rainy or warm here in Central Oregon. It's snowy and cold.
Oh, is it?
Yes.
That's always fun. So we got, I did watch Here Come the Dragons, or Here Be the Dragons.
Here Be Dragons, yes.
Yes.
My 2008 film. My first one I ever made.
I liked it. I got to be honest, I'd never heard the term critical thinking until like 3 years ago. And then I started thinking, why haven't I never heard critical thinking before? You know, it's like, should it be taught earlier?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it's a loaded term. Everyone uses the term critical thinking, and everyone considers themselves to be critical thinkers. If you are a vaccine denier, you consider that what you've done is to be critical thinking, which is to, dispute the norm, whatever the government is telling us. That's independent critical thinking. Apparently, is to just to disagree with whatever the authorities say. Creationists do this. I mean, everyone does this. Critical thinking. The definition depends on who you ask. For me, critical thinking would be having a standard of evidence for the things that you decide to believe. For anyone else, it might be thinking for yourself or doing your own research or whatever it is they consider critical thinking to be. So it's a difficult term, and it's hard to get people to change their mind about what they think a term means.
Well, I always just thought of it as logical thinking, and then I was like, oh, I guess I do kind of critically think.
Congratulations. Welcome to the club.
Yeah, somebody makes a claim. You go, what's the evidence? They state the case, and you look through it, and you go, but most of
that
science...
would be a reasonable process to follow. That would be great. If more people did that, the world would be a better place.
It's something like arguing with the body language people. Have you read the science papers on this? And because they repeat the same thing over and over again, I'm like, the consensus of science. Hey, we got a visitor.
I'm getting attacked by a small Bigfoot. Get out of here. Apologies. Continue.
No, that's it. Yeah, the body language experts and stuff. And I'm like, well, if you read all the papers on it, the published peer-reviewed papers, most of them can't find a correlation between what you're claiming. And they'll keep arguing. They'll go, no, they're reading the clusters and stuff. And I'm like, well, if you can't specifically relate one thing to a definition, like your eyes go up and to the right, you're doing this. Your eyes go down and to the left, you're doing this. They still haven't proven a correlation that's universal for everyone.
Okay.
So therefore, body language is sort of not a science. It's more like whatever you want it to be.
Yeah, I have not done a show on that, but I've heard it suggested before that it's something that needs a good Skeptoid treatment, but haven't
Oh,
got around to it
oh,
as I
that.
haven't with hundreds of other topics.
Oh, yeah. There's a bunch of stuff to really go through, but one of the reasons I wanted you on was this great one you did on the Port Chatham, Alaska mystery, or
Yes,
should we air quote it mystery? The
mystery.
claimed mystery. I was open minded. I only heard about it because it came across through Bigfoot circles, and I was like, what's because I heard someone claim that it was wolves, and I was like, now I got to look. I started looking, and I went, well, this is weird. And then your podcast popped up in the Google search, and I was like, there's the guy to go to.
Yeah, when you say someone said it was wolves, my question is, what was wolves? What is it that supposedly happened
It
here
wasn't.
and that was
Oh,
caused by wolves?
it wasn't Bigfoot attacking people. It was wolves.
So we have some presumption that people were attacked
Right. And that's
because
where I went. I got to look now because there
yeah,
should be something.
there should be. I spent probably about 10 days on this one, exhaustively going through newspaper archives for that entire region of Alaska at the time. You know, we had Anchorage newspapers. There was no newspaper in Port Chatham or whatever. What was its other name?
Portlock.
Portlock. Yeah, two names, same place. um, and speaking to the people at the Anchorage Museum, was it the Anchorage Museum? I want to make sure I get that right. The Anchorage Museum, yeah. The curation staff there was extremely helpful when I did this episode. They were pulling up old stuff out of their archives, for which there's surprisingly little. And really, the interesting thing for me is that the people at the Anchorage Museum had never heard these stories. They had never even heard of this, that supposedly this town was attacked by Bigfoots until everyone had to abandon the whole town. That's a popular urban legend is from where I sit, which is admittedly in a world of urban legends and where people are sending me weird stuff all day. But the people at the Anchorage Museum had never heard that before. Now they knew all about Port Chatham and why it was eventually abandoned and everything, but that had never come across their desk before. And that was definitely a red flag to the bull for me for diving in and doing more work on this particular topic.
Yeah, because apparently this same town was abandoned in 1905 as well.
1905, huh?
I thought
I
so.
that's not ringing a bell for me, but that I by no means do I claim to have caught everything in the history here. Yeah, I don't have anything about a 1905 abandonment.
No.
Just going, I
You
I have my notes. I'm just scrolling through them here,
Oh, okay. As long as
which
you
is
have
why
your
I'm
notes,
oddly
you'll
looking
be
off
all
to the
right.
side.
I think it was on another blog.
Okay, good. Well, let me just search the page. Is there a
Oh,
1905 anything?
there's
Nope.
a few, some people have done, like, little Amazon things on it, a
Made
man
little mini
eating
documentary
Bigfoot.
films or something?
Yeah, in the search of the Port Chatham hairy man on Apple TV,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
uh, even the 40 forums talked about this.
It's interesting in that it can be the year 2010, and you can say, in 1975, there was a reference in this magazine or newspaper, and now everyone will believe that the story goes back to at least 1975. But you didn't say that until the 2000s, and in many cases, people just make something up, and it turns out there is no 1975 reference. That's 2005 time that someone said this is the first time that part of the story ever existed, not the 1970s, but the 2000s. That was really common in this particular story.
Oh,
So many
yeah.
things were claimed to have happened that there's no record ever happened. None of the books that were written at the time or in the decades after ever mentioned this. Certainly, certainly nothing in the searchable newspaper archives.
Yeah, and there's no newspaper articles about these murders, about murders taking place.
Any murders at all. Yeah, there was very little violent crime in this. I mean, this is a small, very small town, and this is one thing the Anchorage Museum people helped me out with a lot, was digging up all the photographs that existed of this town before it was abandoned. And there weren't very many. You can count them on the fingers of one hand. And they showed, it's true, there were no automobiles in town. There were no tractors or any motor vehicles because there would have been no way to get them there. Um, there was basically just a few buildings, a bunch of little houses and shacks and things. They sort of followed the 1949 California Gold Rush architecture method of houses being a few sticks and then canvas walls. So they kind of looked like tents, kind of like on MASH. For an entire building to be sheathed entirely in wood would have been the exception, not the rule.
Mm-hmm.
There were no roads there, and so that's a very difficult place to do business in. There was the cannery, and there was the lumber mill. Those are the two big businesses in town. Both businesses were doing rock and rolling business. They were both doing great. Plenty of fish, plenty of wood, lots of business for these people to do. The problem was that you just can't really live very well when the boat comes once a week to let you take your stuff to market. And if you need to go to the mainland to go to the post office or to go shopping or whatever like that, that's kind of hard. And what year was it that tell me if you don't want me to jump ahead. I can jump
No,
ahead here to the solution or I can not. It's up to you.
go ahead.
Go ahead. Okay. So it was in the 1940s, Alaska Route 1 was completed, which went down the Kenai Peninsula. And this was across a body of water from Portlock that wasn't very far, but it would have taken you weeks or months to even ride it by horseback to get from one place to the other, or a few days by boat. But if you just move a couple of miles across the water and you're on the Kenai Peninsula and you've got Alaska Highway, Alaska Route 1, all of a sudden you're connected to the world. You've got telephone lines, you've got electrical power, you've got a supermarket right down the road. And that's the reason Portlock moved. It wasn't abandoned. People there weren't all killed by Bigfoots. It's simply that the highway opened, and so everyone moved over to the highway. They relocated the fishery. They relocated the lumber yard. None of these things were abandoned. They just moved a few miles. That's the entirety of the story. And then at some point, someone decided, hey, let's make some big dramatic mystery about this. And they created this whole legend of a Bigfoot coming in and killing everyone. And it was called the I'm going to pronounce it wrong, for which I apologize to anyone who might hear this who knows how it's actually pronounced. Nantinnuk. Nantinnuk? The Nantinnuk. Supposedly was the name for Bigfoot in one of the local languages. Part of the one thing that I did during the research for this was there's actually Facebook groups that ended up being the most helpful. I found a couple of Facebook groups dedicated to local languages around this area. And it was astonishing to me how many languages there were in such a small part of the state. And so I'm talking here with native speakers of these languages, and I'm saying, what does Nantinnuk mean? And here's how it's spelled in all these Bigfoot books. And they say, I've never heard the word before at all. And then after I did the episode, someone actually did come back and they had heard the word. I don't recollect what it actually meant, but it was nothing like what it's claimed to mean. You know, a murderous creature that lives in the woods or something like that. And right away, I realized that this is just yet one more case of modern cryptozoologists going to the ancient legends and the lore of whatever the local culture is and finding some word that they think might possibly be a historical justification for the creature that they want to believe in. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm.
every time you hear, oh, the Bigfoot is the Wendigo, or whatever the term is, say, oh, gee, well, that proves that the ancient First Nations people must have known about Bigfoot. They just had a different word for it. Well, no, this is a modern belief. It's a modern invention, and someone did enough work researching the old languages to find the word Wendigo and said, aha, that's the one I'll use, and that's justification for an ancient existence of Bigfoot. That's exactly what happened up in Port Chatham. There was no, so far as anyone's been able to find out, certainly not in the language groups that I spoke with, certainly not at the Anchorage Museum. There was never any historical precedent for a murderous Bigfoot type creature in that area. I feel I've rambled on for a long time. I would like to pause and let you chip in here.
Well, the only concern I would say is that this would certainly benefit some people to go along with there are killer Bigfoots for a good narrative.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely it won't be the first time, and it's not the last time. I've heard people
Certainly
claim
not.
that Bigfoots just slam people against trees and kill them. And I'm like, and the big cover up comes along and they don't want you to know that this is happening. And I said, now a lot of times I'm supposed to believe that these forest workers and police and stuff are morally bankrupt, is basically what you want me to believe. That every single one of them who would know that a Bigfoot killed someone is so morally bankrupt that they would just go along with this. Now, like I try to be open-minded, but sometimes the claims, close the open mind pretty quick.
Yeah, it's difficult when you've got a historical record that's easy for anyone to search, or if not easy, at least it's approachable and manageable to search. And there are people who simply insist upon an alternate narrative without having done that work to double check it. They are so certain of their narrative that they refuse to even go and check it against the historical record. I run up against that all the time in my work with Skeptoid.
But don't they understand it kind of drives us nuts? Can't they help us out a little?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say that it drives me nuts that people do that. I mean, certainly it does in the informal, colloquial sense.
Right.
But the more important thing is to understand why people do that, why people want to accept a narrative that is so clearly at odds with a very approachable and verifiable record. And, it just comes down to a lot of really interesting psychology, a lot of really interesting social psychology. It comes down to moral foundations theory. It comes down to the power of anecdotal belief. That's a fascinating subject, and it's responsible for. I mean, if you don't think it's a fascinating subject, reflect on the fact that is what's responsible for almost the entirety of legend and lore throughout human history. These reasons people want to believe something that there's no real world equivalent for.
Mm-hmm.
It's fascinating and it's wonderful, and it's a lot of fun to research and work on.
Oh yeah, I have fun. It's I get to read scientific papers that my brain goes, I'm not prepared to read this, and I go, well, guess what? We're gonna read it. Especially psychology.
Scroll to the abstract.
Yeah, your own mind is just like, wow, what you learn and what you think about in the past is like, oh, I thought stuff like that before and it was all wrong. And it's like, am I doing the same thing today? I like to be self-reflective. This way I can kind of improve myself. So diving into the psychological papers and stuff was interesting because it allowed my empathy for people to sort of, yeah, I get it. I do understand. Because I think a lot of people, people who truly believe something strange happened to them, they just want someone who's going to listen to them without smirking at them and whatnot.
Yeah, that's where it's difficult. I remember one of the early episodes I did of Skeptoid was on Morgellons disease, which is not a real thing. But what happens is, well, to explain it, the best way to explain it is to describe the very first case, which was a woman. She was actually a nurse. She was actually a registered nurse, and her son, who was an infant or a toddler at the time, she found scrapes on his skin, and there was fibers coming out of these scrapes. And in her mind, those fibers were being extruded by the boy's body. And so she took him to doctor after doctor after doctor. And each doctor said, he's got a scab. Who knows how it happened? But he's got fibers from the carpet or his blanket or whatever, or just adhering to the scab. Well, she wouldn't accept that because she had stuck in her mind that his body was extruding these fibers. Puppy, go away. You're very sweet and I love you, but this is distracting. Go away. Go find someone else. Anyway, I know nobody in internet land is offended. Everyone loves puppies. But anyway, so I did an episode on this Morgellons disease thing, explaining why that happens. And oh my God, that was probably my first introduction to real internet hate. It just descended upon me like a crashing tidal wave. So many
Wow.
people who were absolutely convinced that this was a real thing and that doctors are all conspiracy theorists and refused to accept it as reality. And I'm part of the problem. Am I being paid by the government to promote this false narrative, to deny the existence of this terrible disease? It's incredible. It's incredible the passion that people have when they really firmly believe something and want to believe it and are invested in that belief. Wow. It's fascinating. And it was a big lesson in, okay, obviously I need to do what I'm doing better to reach these people more effectively rather than to immediately announce myself as their enemy. So
Mm.
I try to do that. I don't think it's possible to do it 100% effectively. I think it's possible to do it better. So that's the stage I'm always stuck in, is always trying to do better.
Yeah, because a lot of people associate skepticism with negativity. And
Yes,
man,
absolutely.
it's tough to jump through hoops to explain to them that you're really, because if you come to someone who already has that mindset about you, the defense mechanism has already kicked in right away. And they're like, oh, any explanation you give is just like, you're just making excuses now. And I'm like, no, I really want to hear your story. Oh, well, you're a skeptic. You're not going to believe me. Oh, I can't believe you unless you tell me what happened. And it's curious to me because I'm more open-minded than my co-host, I think. And I'm just like, I'm a chill guy. I just, here's the thing with me, and you can tell me if you agree or not.
Okay.
I have possible beliefs, but I don't take possible beliefs and incorporate them into my worldview. If my possible beliefs have evidence that substantiates them, they can go in. If there's not, they can ship out.
Can you give me an example?
I think it's possible aliens exist.
Aliens exist in
Right.
space or on Earth?
In space.
Okay. Well, you would be right in line with the vast majority of the astronomy astrophysicist community. I mean, that's a pretty universal belief. Uh, astrobiologists, I apologize to any astrobiologists for excluding you first, but yeah, no, I think in my experience, and that's the focus of the movie that I'm working on right now, and I've spoken to a lot of them. everyone clearly says that that is the consensus in the field, that there are almost certainly um, alien aliens out there. Some say it's probably all mostly microbial. Some say there's
Hmm.
no reason to believe it's anything less than human civilization in terms of its complexity and its art and its culture and its history. The beliefs are all over the place, but nearly everyone. In fact, I don't think I've ever heard a single legitimate working astrobiologist or astronomer or astrophysicist say that there's probably no life in the universe except on Earth. So I think you're right there with that. I agree with you.
All right, you ready for the next one?
Yes, fire
All
away.
right. I believe leprechauns could be real.
Leprechauns could be real.
I
Well,
figured
that's
I'd just throw
interesting.
that
Okay,
out there.
tell me more. What?
That was
Where
a
do you?
joke.
Okay, well, don't. That was not
Well,
productive.
they've been written about,
Let,
though. I can make an
okay,
argument.
if you're going to say that, then since we came here to talk about a Bigfoot case. I want to tell about my own personal complicated relationship with Bigfoot.
Sure.
I was a firm believer that Bigfoot was real, probably into my 30s.
Yeah, me too.
And I think the reason for I am not anymore. I think the reason for it was that when I was small, up until age 10, around age 10, I was voraciously reading every book I could get on Bigfoot, Bermuda Triangle, haunted houses, aliens, UFOs, all of that stuff. And I believed every word in every one of the books. And Bigfoot was always particularly compelling for me because it scared the hell out of me. I was I was terrified to take the trash out at night because there might be a Bigfoot in the trees in our urban home in the middle of the Los Angeles basin. I
Hmm.
was terrified of Bigfoot. Um, and I had a recurring nightmare that I still get to this day. I get it once a year at least, where I'm in the car riding with my family on our way to a camping trip in the woods, and I'm looking out the window and I see like Bigfoots running around, darting from behind tree to tree. I'm saying, "Look, everyone, look! There's hairy monsters!" And nobody cares, and it traumatizes me. And I'll wake up every morning in a cold sweat, terrified of Bigfoot. So I put the blame for this on two things in particular. Thing number one is the Patterson Gimlin Bigfoot film, the famous film of Patty. They've named it
Yep.
"Walking Across the Meadow," and in that frozen pose that's so iconic. And man, I can't even tell you the number of times I went through that film frame by frame, and oh my God, I loved the internet days when suddenly stabilization was a thing and I could watch a stabilized version of it. But I concluded that that had to be a real animal by the way its muscles moved and the way it had that silverback pattern, the same as male gorillas. And I believed that that had to be a real animal. And the second thing that made me believe was a blurb on the back cover of one of these books, one of these Bigfoot books. I have no idea what the title was or who wrote it. It was probably one of the standards. It was probably Grover Krantz or Ivard Sanderson, one of the people that was writing these Bigfoot books back in the day. And to paraphrase it, it said something like either the greatest hoax in the history of humanity has been successfully pulled off by thousands of people over hundreds of years with nobody ever blowing the whistle, or there's an undiscovered great ape alive in the forests of the Pacific Northwest. And I thought, well, that's pretty darn compelling. Obviously, the one thing is implausible, so the second thing must be true. So it wasn't really until I started doing Skeptoid and started getting much more fluent in the tenets of critical thinking, real critical thinking, not like what we were talking about earlier, that I realized that both of these were very fallacious. That this idea of either the hoax must be true or there must be an undiscovered species of great ape. I didn't know at the time that there was such a thing as fallacious logic. I didn't realize that this was a a false dichotomy and that there
Hmm.
was an excluded middle here, and that those two extreme perspectives, either Bigfoot is real or there's a giant hoax that was pulled off by an implausible number of people over an implausible period of time. Those are the two least likely possibilities. You've got the excluded middle, which is people can be mistaken. I am mistaken every day about something. I don't know what, but it is. I know that I'm not dumb enough to realize that I'm perfect. I know that I'm mistaken all the time, and people can be mistaken. And people out in the woods can see something or hear something, and they might think that, oh shit, that could be Bigfoot. So
Hmm.
that's much more likely. Anywhere in that spectrum is much more likely than either of those two extreme endpoints. And then for the Patterson Big Gimlin film of Bigfoot, I didn't really yet understand the concept of what my friend Mick West calls the low information zone. And the subject of the Patterson Gimlin film, whether that's a Bigfoot, whether that's an animal, whether that's a person in a suit, whether it's whatever it exists in the low information zone. And that is the zone that is far away enough from the camera that we don't get any good, useful details. It's not clear enough to reliably analyze it in extreme detail. And also, I mean, so much research has been done, Greg Long's book in particular, that we have a complete history of that film and where the film was and when it was taken and where it was processed and who picked it up and how it got from here to there. And it is absolutely clear that there is no room at all for the version of the story that they gave to be true. Um, and what we have shown in the film is completely undefinable and does not provide enough information for us to make any kind of a conclusion on. So you put this just all together, and there is no longer any reliable reason to think that such a thing as Bigfoot must exist. I didn't understand that when I was 10, nor when I was 20, nor when I was 30. It wasn't until I started doing Skeptoid and started really learning and really versing myself thoroughly in these things that I realized, shoot, I've been believing something pretty darn incredible and pretty darn improbable for decades based on faulty information. And for me, that was a huge revelation, and it's something that I'm so glad happened, and it's a story I would love to tell and share a million times because we all have something like that. We all have something that we've believed for a long, long time that is false, or at a minimum, you can say that it is not supported by any plausible evidence.
Yeah, that's usually where I go. It seems to satisfy some believers if you don't completely. Because who knows? I don't know. I leave the window open that maybe one day something shocking evidence will be found.
Yeah, I think we all do. Um, I mean, and whether we, even if we don't, even if we say nothing can convince me of this, well, one day something might show up that will convince me of that.
Right. Mine was alien abductions.
Ah,
I was
okay.
totally into the Travis Walton story, and I was completely into the Art Bell show.
Yeah, a lot
So
of
you'd
people
hear
were.
some things on there too, and
You're in very good company. Yeah.
yeah. But what happened was the people who went to Travis Walton first were told, "Listen, you got to do a positive story here. You got to believe Travis Walton." So the guy who was being more objective, his stuff kind of got. Well, we're not going to talk about that stuff, but there's revelations that came forward. Like the mother said that she wanted the search called off because aliens are good and they'll bring Travis back.
Hadn't heard that one, but okay.
Yeah. His,
But yeah, a lot has come out about that story. You're right.
yeah, I think it was someone wrote in this. The guy who investigated wrote in the for the an article in Skeptical Inquirer, I believe. But apparently, Walton's brother had also said that they had talked about being abducted before, and that if one of them was, they would try to convince the occupants to go back for the other one. And I'm like,
I want to play. I don't want to say devil's advocate, but something that's often brought up in that is, they had this financial motivation, because we know that. Sorry, I'm just going to turn all my devices to do not disturb. I always forget to do that first. There we go. There was Travis's brother, I think, who's the one who had the contract with the Forest Service. They were way behind it, and they were just about to hit a deadline where they were going to owe a $2,500 fine. And these guys didn't have any $2,500. And so here's the National Enquirer with its offer of $100,000 for whoever can give us the best UFO story, not a UFO story that proves anything, but the best of all the ones we hear. And so they came up with this. And there's that famous photograph from the Enquirer with Travis Walton holding up a check for $2,500. They didn't get 100,000; they got 5,000. But the photograph shows Travis Walton holding a check for $2,500, and then the other 5 or 6 guys from his forestry crew, including his brother, holding up checks that split the other $2,500. Well, there, boom, they just got themselves out of that problem they had with their Forest Service contract because they weren't getting the work done on time. Now, all of that apparently is true, but, and this is a very important but, it doesn't say anything at all about whether the abduction story was true or not. You can say follow the money, but if you say follow the money all the time, that means that every ambulance is involved in every car accident and secretly causes it to happen because they make money every time they get to do a pickup. Follow the money is a terrible strategy. So it may be true in the Travis Walton case, but by itself, it is not proof or evidence that there's anything false about their story. It's just that his story is ridiculous and completely unevidenced, and it's Russell's teapot, if you will.
yeah.
You have no reason to believe it.
But when I was younger, I really, I wanted to believe it.
Sure. When I was that age too, I believed everything that was in any book or on any TV show.
I remember those old Black Time Life books. They had like the Loch Ness Monster picture in it. They had I think a picture of a Bigfoot in it. Man, I would look at that Loch Ness one every day. I was just like, yep, Loch Ness Monster, absolutely real.
I had all those series of books too.
Oh yeah.
Yep. The Time Life series of whatever it was. And I spent my entire high school years, I think. I never went out, I never went to parties. I spent my entire high school years with headphones on, listening to music and reading those Time Life books, rereading them, rereading, and believing every word that was in them.
Yeah, I had them all, I think. I had it lined a big shelf in the cabinet downstairs, just all over. And then eventually the glass shelf came out. Oh, that's a fun surprise. Leaving for work, all you hear is crash. Uh-oh.
Sorry that happened. Glad you made it back.
Yeah, at least the books were all right, though. I don't have them anymore, but I believed almost everything because it just, you don't know what you think it's professional when you're a kid, really. You don't think anyone's sitting out to tell you a story. You think in Time Life, that's going to be factual stuff.
If it's in a book, it must be true.
Yeah, kind of like if it's on the internet, it must be true today.
Yeah, we all know that.
Well, I like the internet. It depends on what you search, though. If you're objective, you're searching both sides. If you're not, you're searching one side. So whatever validates your claim, you're going to look for that. Whatever doesn't validate your claim is nonsense. And I'm like, it was heartbreaking when I found out that there's no real reason to believe Travis Walton. And a few others. I mean, UFO Watchdog, when Art Bell had that Dr. Jonathan Reed on, who claimed that he was hiking and an alien ripped his dog in half and it turned to dust. Well, UF Watchdog went all on that. The guy's real name is Jonathan Rudder. He's basically a con guy. And he's still around. He's trying to hawk his books, and this weird claims he has a weird bracelet that injects into his wrist and he can transverse disappear.
Does he sell those bracelets? Can I get one
No,
somehow?
there's only one.
Oh.
But nobody independent can look at it or study it. But he sold me, man. I was convinced. Just a kid huddled by his radio, the guy telling the story. He even has, there's probably some videos on the internet still of him showing the alien and stuff. He brought it home.
Well, you remember someone crank called the Coast to Coast radio show when George Norrie was hosting and pretended to be Gordon, I forget his last name. He's a character from Half-Life.
Oh, geez.
It's a government scientist who runs around with a machine gun killing monsters from interdimensional space rifts. And he basically called George Norrie and told the story of this character as if it was his own story and true. And, what the hell's George? George Norrie doesn't play the video game. He doesn't know. But half the audience knew the video game or had getting a good laugh from it. The other half probably represented the rest of the spectrum of beliefs, but some of those are probably people who believed it wholeheartedly, because if it's on the radio, it must be true.
Oh, yeah, especially, well, that's what Coast to Coast AM kind of was, though. I mean, Art Bell had someone claiming to be the Antichrist call in.
Yeah, wasn't Art Bell's thing that he had no call screener? Wasn't that his big
Yeah,
shtick?
come on. Yeah. He had some, but hey, some of the callers were convincing. It's well known, the Area 51 caller who got too close to Area 51 and he called Art while it was happening. And then the call, but like a week or two later, someone called and claimed that he was the Area 51 caller. To me, it sounded like the caller, but to other people, it's not. So you get that split, and I'm like, why would they even care? I think that transmission would end if Area 51 is what it is and they can do what they can do. Wouldn't they just be able to turn his plane off at some point,
Well, I was there once. I mean, I was at the gate of Area 51 one night, outside the gate where you're legally allowed to be, and we had the security guards in the infamous white Jeep Cherokees. They drove down, got pretty close to us, and they started shining their spotlight at us to, like, in a harassing kind of way. And I didn't care because we were legal. We were perfectly legal. But one of the guys in our party kind of threw a panic, and we had to drive away, sort of because of him. But I'd have loved to call Coast to Coast and give a live stream of what was going on at the time.
Yeah, that would be awesome. You didn't see any UFOs, though, right?
Huh?
Did you see anything strange, unusual?
No, we were hoping. We had our eye on the sky, but no, we didn't have a radio scanner. We didn't have. We were looking at the sky, but we didn't see anything. Very disappointing.
UFOs are tricky, though. There's lots of things that could be up there. I learned that. I
guess there are.
Because I thought I saw, and someone's like, "No, it was a satellite." And I'm like, "No, man, the satellites don't move like that." And then they show you the time that it came by, and it's like, the position. That was a satellite? That's neat. I still think it's cool, though. Other people would get upset. Me, I'm like, no, that's pretty awesome.
That is just a satellite going by?
Yeah, that your perception can do that. They can make it something else, but to someone else, they have the answer for you. Like natural phenomenons, like the weatherman who got so excited over thunder snow. He got excited because it's rare and it's awesome. I'm like, can we just enjoy the natural wonders and mysteries too? Those are fun.
So,
So
so a housekeeping question here. Should I be able to see if there's any comments in the little
yeah,
comments section here, or
yeah. So far, people are being shy.
okay? I wasn't sure if
I would read them off too, because I can
okay.
put them on the screen too. Can we go over some of the red flags that were in Here Be Dragons? Because some of
Sure.
these, I to be honest, I knew what they were, but I didn't know they had like names,
Oh,
like
okay.
suppression by authority.
Suppression by authority. Do you mean argument from authority, or um,
Oh yeah, argument.
argument from authority is that's an interesting one because I can say, oh, the CDC says that masks are recommended for COVID-19. And then someone will respond, "Oh, that's the argument from authority. That's a logical fallacy." Well, no, it's not. That's not what the argument from authority is. It's when you say that something is true because it comes from something with authoritative imagery. For example, if I were to put on a lab coat and then sell my bullshit supplement products, and say, "Oh, obviously I'm wearing a lab coat, so whatever I say must be true." That's the argument from authority. It's not the same thing as deferring to a legitimate authority for someone who legitimately does know more than you and I do know more about this. So yeah, it's the use of authoritative imagery to support your point.
Ah, okay. Proof by verbosity.
um, if you don't read my 25,000 word report on why the Twin Towers were brought down with explosives, then that means you can't disprove it. So therefore, it's true.
Oh,
just just use enough words and more words and more words and more words until nobody is interested in replying anymore. Proof by verbosity, right there.
oh, so that's what all those really long messages and emails become is just all the information I didn't need is
It, it,
basically they're providing it to distract me.
when I get an email from someone, "Hey, here's a comment on your recent show," and the scroll bar on the email window, there's like the little scroll
Mhm.
bar is really short up at the top of it because it's got like about a mile to scroll down through. At that point, I delete the email. I don't even read past it. When I see a really, really short scroll bar, I'm done. I check out. If you don't have anything to say that's succinct, I don't have time for it.
Oh,
Proof by verbosity does not
yeah,
work for me.
I know what suppression by authorities is now. Just went in my head. UFO crash comes, people swear they see it, but then the authorities come in and there's a big cover up. So the authorities cover all this stuff up. It's just a cover up. Where's the evidence? Now it's a cover up. Are you part of it? It's like, no, I'm just a dude who does a podcast, I have no will towards anyone, I want to hear all these stories too, you know? This way you can sift through it at least and see if there's patterns between other people who say things, see if they start parroting one another. It's fascinating, some of the dialogue that goes on. And that's what I like. That's why I read what I read, because I want to give people a chance, maybe I'm wrong. I could be. I could be. I have to accept that.
For sure.
Where was the other one? Oh, ancient wisdom was a good one, Brian.
Ancient wisdom is a very good one. If it's old, if people have believed it for a long time, or even if we say that people have believed it for a long time, it's therefore true. It has survived the test of time. The ancients were more connected to Mother Earth, and they understood the frequencies of the universe better than we do in our modern internet corrupted days. Yeah, ancient wisdom is shockingly persuasive to many people. The Chinese believed this 5,000 years ago, therefore it's true. And science doesn't have the tools to properly analyze something that's that old and that has been believed by that many people for that many years. Yeah, ancient wisdom is um, also called, what is it? Proof by antiquity, appeal to antiquity.
Appeal,
I
yeah,
think.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think you
Um,
called it. Yeah, no, you did call it that. I just wrote down ancient wisdom because I was taking this down as I'm watching because they're free, and I did link them in the description. Here be dragons and
well, thank you.
the principles of
Principles of
curiosity
Curiosity
was
is also
great.
free. Yeah.
Yeah, the principles of curiosity was great.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I was super super proud of that. I put so much work into that, and we had such a great crew and everything. Everything was just a dream making that. The problem with Principles of Curiosity was we released it for free. Therefore, it's not something that anyone can make any money off of. Therefore, it's not something anyone's going to put any marketing budget behind. Therefore, it's not going to be seen by anyone. So even though Skeptoid is a mission-driven nonprofit, we're not profit-driven. We make a movie, Science Friction, our 2022 film. We make a movie. We do not need to make any money from it. We are not profit-driven. We are mission-driven, which is get this information out in front of as many people as we can. But those two things are kind of in conflict. If there's no money to be made, nobody is going to be interested in promoting it or marketing it for you. Now, if I had $1 million marketing budget, I would just pay people to put it in front, to advertise it and put it in front
Right.
of as many people as possible. But we don't have that. So instead, we decided to make Science Friction a commercial for-profit release, um, which is not incompatible with being a nonprofit. There's different classifications for the types of income and everything. You can make that work, and so we did all that, and we're still at the point where it has done very well in film festivals. It trickles in a little bit of income on the streaming services, but we still don't have a higher end distributor, and we are still working on that. So hopefully, Science Friction will get a re-release at some point and get in front of a lot of people, be listed as an Amazon Prime original
Hmm.
or a Netflix original, and actually get recommended by the algorithms instead of just being in the background. So we are still working on that.
Yeah, because
Um,
I liked that you had your friends in there too when you're sitting
yeah.
around talking. I was like, "Ah,
Oh
this
yeah.
guy went
And
all out for it."
principles of curiosity. Yeah.
Curiosity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was
Yeah.
like,
We had that for people who are major donors. They had the right to appear in the film. And so we sat around, we had a little conversation about whatever the topic of that moment was. And that was a lot of fun for them, and it was fun for us, and fun for me because I think most of the people who did that were people I'd known for some time. So yeah, that was a neat little aspect to the film.
but I did like Hair Be Dragons better. No,
You
no, they're different
the
shows. They're
well,
different.
here's the thing about Here Be Dragons. I when I first started podcasting, 2006. I guess it was 2008. Skeptoid had seen some good traction. I had a good solid audience. I said, okay, I'm going to make a movie version of everything I've learned from Skeptoid. So I looked at my calendar. I blocked off 2 weeks. Said I'm going to take 2 weeks off work. I'm going to take 2 weeks off Skeptoid, and I like scrounged my bank account and I found like $2,500. So here's my budget: $2,500, 2 weeks. And in 2 weeks, I wrote and shot and edited that entire thing. Now, this is with one guy and a tripod and a crappy
Yeah,
video camera
that's why I love it
and
though.
no decent microphones. No post-production process at all. And so when you mention Here Be Dragons to me, on the one hand, I'm horrified because the production values are so awful. But on the other hand,
Oh,
I
I love it.
rewatch it myself and I go, wow, that's actually really good. I
Yeah,
mean, the content is great. I love the way it was structured and presented. I'm really very, very happy with it.
I like when
even
you're in
though
the
I'm
lab coat.
simultaneously horrified by it.
I like when you put on the lab coat and
Hey, I know, but here's an unexpected downside of that. So in some of the scenes, I was in a doctor friend's office who let me sit in his office and look like I'm using his X-ray machine and doing all these other doctor things, and I'm wearing a white lab coat. I don't know why I didn't think this, but a number of people who watched the film assumed that I was actually a doctor in real life. And I start getting emails to me saying, "Hey, Dr. Dunning, I really enjoyed this or that." And I'm going, "Wait, no, 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 I am not a doctor. I have too much respect for real doctors to compare myself to them. So, no, I am not a doctor." So that was a mistake, and I shouldn't have done that, and I wouldn't do it again.
did you, yeah, but those sugar pills, how'd they taste? Sugary?
the, the homeopathy pills, yeah,
Those are great.
yeah, they were you. It was just like eating a sugar cube.
Yeah, you can't argue with those people either. Ooh.
No,
But
no, homeopathy is true, and that's the end of the discussion.
yeah, if you want an orange, eat an orange. That's what you want. Some vitamin C. There you go. Get some sun. Eat some.
Or have some
Yeah,
have some sugar that was allegedly once infused with a drop of water that was allegedly once near an orange. Not quite
yeah.
the same.
Watered down. I was like, oh man. I had heard that from somebody else had told me that, and I forgot who else did something about it, but I was like, oh, that one I already knew that, but they never showed the little. They got those things small.
Very small, yes.
I'm like, come on. It's like you can eat the whole bottle and nothing would happen to you, really.
As has been done. Yes. James Randi, before he died, famously once took an entire bottle of homeopathic sleeping pills
Oh,
and
yes.
mysteriously did not die from the overdose.
Yes. Did you ever get to meet
Yeah.
the amazing Randy? I was going to ask you about
Oh,
him.
many times. No, I am very proud to say I was a personal acquaintance and a friend of his. He was I mean, you would no lovelier man to know or to meet, no better friend to have, the most gracious host. There is literally not a single negative thing I could say about the guy. He was a huge inspiration to me personally. Um, I would say he's my mentor, but he never mentored me in any
Mm.
actual way, other than in my own mind. No, he was a great guy, and I'm very glad to have been able to know him.
Well, I remember him from some of the TV shows he did, but
Sure, yeah,
later on, when I got older and I understood, because like I said, I believed a lot of this stuff, so he was kind of ticking me off too. You know what I mean? But as I got older, I started to understand what he actually meant. You know, in real life, you have to apply these things so that people
right.
can't walk over you. You know, rip you off. And then I just grew a great appreciation for him. You know, what he did with that guy over there who was hoodwinking people out of money. He caught him, you know, playing the crowd. His wife was on the earpiece.
Peter Popoff, yes.
Yes, Peter
He
Popoff.
yeah,
I
he
love
was
this guy now because
he
he
was
told a story
busting the
about that poor
charlatans.
kid, you know, who was crippled or something going to this event. And he goes, "Yeah, that's reason enough to expose this guy."
Yep, I agree.
And he tried to come back after
He
his
did
holy
come back
water.
after.
Yeah, he came back.
In fact, last time I checked, which has been a little while now, Peter Popoff is actually still out there and still doing the same shtick. He's not
Yeah,
super popular, but he's making enough money to get by.
yeah. You can't get rid of these people for forever, but you can try and squash the majority of people getting into it. It's
All right,
amazing.
we're at our hour. We got anything else to do here?
No, that was
Or have we
about it,
pretty much
Mister Dunham.
twisted every last drop we can out?
Out of Bigfoot.
Hello?
Hello. Yeah, you paused for a second.
You disappeared.
Did I?
We both disappeared. I came back. You didn't.
Oh, that's weird. Something's flinching.
I'm seeing me, and I'm seeing you as a little spinning rainbow wheel.
Oh, that's neat. Because I see us clearly.
Did we get automatically cut off after an hour?
No, somebody is. It's the government coming in and shutting us down because.
I'm going to assume that I'm done. So if anyone else is still watching, oh, there you are. You're back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Hello?
I should be back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Well, you were gone for me for some time. Not a whole
I don't know why that happened because on my screen everything's fine.
Okay.
That was weird. I appreciate you coming by, Brian. I really do.
I had a lot of fun. I always do doing these. So yeah, anytime.
Oh, cool. You guys, whoever watches this, thank you so very much. And don't forget to share, like, subscribe, do all that wonderful stuff.
Do all of the things.
Maybe after the Alien movie comes out, Brian. Because you know I'm going to be watching that.
Yes, you should. I will send it to you.
That's my favorite subject.
Mine
Besides Bigfoot is the alien stuff.
One of my many favorite subjects. I won't say that I'm able to name a number one favorite, but I love that as much as I love anything else.
Yeah. Have a good night, guys. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Thank you, everyone.